I want to talk now about the latest efforts by the government to deal with the threat of cybersecurity. Now, as we've been telling you, recent efforts by Congress to pass cybersecurity legislation have failed. So now President Obama has taken the matter into his own hands, reportedly signing Presidential Policy Directive 20. According to the Washington Post, this is a classified document which lays out what federal agencies can and can't do to respond to cyber threats and attacks. So, because this document is classified, that means none of us can see it. We don't know what's in it. Even those in Congress will not have oversight, though it may very well impact many Americans. So two attorneys with the Electronic Privacy Information Center, or EPIC, have filed a Freedom of Information request demanding that the president release this secret directive. Put simply, they want to make sure there's accountability. In the FOIA request, it says transparency in cybersecurity is crucial to the public's ability to monitor the government's national security efforts and ensure that federal agencies respect privacy rights and comply with their privacy obligations under the Privacy Act. Well, joining me now is one of those attorneys working on the case, Amy Stepanovich. Hey, Amy, thanks for being here. I want to talk first about what we know. Okay. I know this is a classified document. What do we know about Presidential Policy Directive 20?
Mostly what we know is what has been contained in the Washington Post summary of the document, which is that it's given more power to the NSA to conduct cybersecurity operations, and that underneath the directive that there will be what they call rules of engagement put into place, where NSA is able to reach outside of government networks and possibly into civilian networks in the United States. We're not entirely sure what that means because we don't know what the document says. So we kind of took that summary and we realized that there are a great amount of concerns here. And previously we had filed a FOIA request for a different presidential security directive. It was National Security Presidential Directive 54, which is a very long way of saying this is the NSA Cybersecurity Authority. That was issued under President Bush. We have a lawsuit going right now to pursue that document. And we thought the logical extension was now, if the NSA's authority is even increasing even more, to try to get the public to see their increased authority as well.
Let's sort of backtrack a little bit and talk about why cybersecurity legislation has not been able to pass in Congress. I mean, if you look at the Senate bill, the recent Senate bill that failed, this had the backing not only of most of the Democrats, it had the backing also of Senator Joe Lieberman, an independent, and Republican Senator Susan Collins. So I guess what are the political arguments here against this?
Well, there are two camps in the cybersecurity legislation world. There is the camp that would like to see the Department of Homeland Security head cybersecurity operations in the United States. This is a civilian agency. They have very specific obligations. They have much more transparency than military agencies. And this is the route that EPIC supports, is this very, more public-friendly outlet. However, there's another camp that would like to see the cybersecurity operations housed entirely at the NSA, the National Security Agency, which has a long history of just being a total black hole for public information. Not only the last two FOIA requests that I've discussed, EPIC has gone to NSA up to 10 times in the last few years, asking them for information, asking them for them to make anything that they're doing public to be held to some sort of transparency standard, and they just won't comply. And we believe that given the choice of these two alternatives, that we would much greatly prefer the civilian agency than the military.
Yeah, I think a lot of critics would argue that by doing this, by having so much unknown and always keeping it secret in the name of national security, it sort of cheapens what, the things that do need to be kept secret in the name of national security when there's such a sweeping, this is used and overused, I think it could be argued. As you mentioned, the only place really that we know anything about this is in this Washington Post article. But in that article, it says that, it effectively enables the military to act more aggressively to thwart cyber attacks. So let's talk bigger picture here. I mean, does this, make cyberspace the new battlefield?
People are saying that. That's a little bit of a contentious point. If you can call something that happens on the internet a battlefield, I think that's an interesting analogy whenever it gets brought up.
I think one of the reasons they're saying it is because basically Congress, or not Congress, but the White House and government and the military are acting without, would be able to act without sort of votes taken or approval given. That's what kind of distinguishes it and makes it a battlefield or a war.
Exactly, and I think it's the operation between Congress acting and the president acting have been very interesting. The president has said he cannot go as far as Congress can go. So all of the different things that are included in one of these bills, he has publicly said, we cannot do all of this. But some of it they can do, they think, by executive order or presidential directive, that they can implement some of these measures without having to go through Congress. And we have to assume that some of that is what's included in the secret directive, the stuff that's more geared toward the NSA's actions. Another executive order is in the works. Supposedly a draft has been released that would give more power to DHS to do cybersecurity operations. And these two, based on what we know, may work in conjunction, may complement each other, but they would work outside of the guise of what Congress is doing, and Congress could always come in and say, this is the procedures that we're going to put into place.
Talk about some of the timing regarding this process. I mean, you mentioned that you are still involved in a lawsuit to get information released that was issued under President Bush.
Yes.
So that's more than 4 years ago. And now you filed this request. I mean, during those 5, 6 years, however many years, I mean, a lot can happen that the American people don't know about. So talk a little bit about that.
That's why we're filing this. We filed our first FOIA request in 2009. Obviously, that's been 3 years ago since we filed it, furthermore, since the document's been released. And in that time, we believe that the public hasn't been able to involve themselves in the cybersecurity debate. And the reason they can't involve themselves is because they don't have the right amount of information. And
they don't know what side to be on in a debate when you can't watch the debate.
Exactly. And supposedly there have been unclassified summaries of some of these presidential directives. Not supposedly, there have been unclassified summaries released, but they don't say exactly what's in it. You can't look at the text, you can't analyze it. And in some cases, when these secret directives have been put forward, not in the cybersecurity context, in other contexts, and members of Congress have later come in and seen what these authorities are given, they have come out and said, you know, you'd be shocked to know what agencies think they're able to do under these powers. And I think that that's one of the great concerns, is we'd like to see what the language says and see what power is given.
Certainly, though, some of the proponents of keeping a lot of this information classified and secret and not available to the public, they use examples like what we saw with the Stuxnet virus, that computer virus developed by the United States and Israel jointly. It caused quite a bit of damage at an Iranian nuclear plant. You know, these proponents say if something similar happened, a virus that infected computer and software and programs here in the United States, that you know, the government needs to be able to act and to do so without being open about it. What's your response to that?
Well, I don't think we doubt that the NSA is positioned. They have expert computer security individuals working for them. Their expertise is unquestioned, as well as the people at DHS working in cybersecurity. They're at the top of their field. These are incredibly intelligent individuals. However, I think that our government is based on public accountability, and regardless of, you know, what actions they're taking, maybe the different safeguards need to be built in, notifying the public after the fact so that they're able to effectively counter maybe a dangerous virus or something. However, that transparency needs to be built in, and we need to know what they're capable of doing as soon as possible in order to educate the public and have a real debate about what this means.
So your concerns and the concerns of EPIC really revolve around accountability and transparency.
Exactly.
All right, Amy Stepanovich with the Electronic Privacy Information Center, thanks so much as always.